Good morning, Digit fam, or as my new friends on Twitter would say, Buenos dias, Digit familia. Adam Dowd here, on the edge of my seat, awaiting Google's announcement at GDC, which of course happens right as this podcast goes to air. But this podcast waits for no announcements, so let's just get right into it. It is March 19th, 2019, and this is your Digit Daily. Well, I guess it'll be called the Pixel 3a. Which is kind of gross, but perhaps that explains why Google is hiring a, quote, head of naming strategy brand studio, and no, I'm not making that up. You can Google it appropriately. Anyway, the managing editor of 9 to 5 Google, Stephen Hall, got hands on the as-yet unreleased device and spent about an hour AMAing the device on Twitter. So here's what we learned. The 3A has a plastic body, a 5.6 OLED screen, a Snapdragon 670 processor with 4GB of RAM. The cameras on the device seem to be the same as the Pixel 3 and the 3 XL, though Stephen did note that the camera performance was noticeably slower both when launching the camera app and after pressing the shutter button. There's a 3000 mAh battery and a headphone jack, woohoo, and will come only in 64GB variants. Strangely, no one asked Stephen if there was a notch, though renders would suggest there is not. Also, no word on pricing or availability except for the super vague spring, which is better than August anyway. It'll be interesting to see whether or not this device sells. We don't know the price yet, but in the $500 range, there's already a gaggle of competition, including OnePlus, Honor, Motorola, Huawei, and Samsung. Plus, the Pixel 2 is still out there with a Snapdragon 835 processor, which will probably do a better job long term. We'll just have to wait and see. Also, Google's aforementioned keynote at GDC comes right around the time that this podcast drops. So what will we see there? First and foremost, we have multiple reports that suggest a new logo around campus, a sort of stylized zigzag line in the shape of an S for stream, perhaps? Also surrounding the Moscone Center, where the announcement will take place, are old-school consoles like the Dreamcast or the original PlayStation, which must be pulling on nostalgia heartstrings, no doubt. But what are we going to see today? Most of the speculation suggests that Google won't release a console at all. Rather, we'll see a controller that will connect to software like an online game store and play the game directly in a browser like Google Chrome, for example. There are some rumors that suggest a game streamer could enable a mode that lets someone buy a game and then zap themselves into the game next to the streamer, which would be pretty next level. Then the only question is, how many crappy stream watchers would a streamer play with before turning off that feature? That's the big question of the day now, isn't it? Well, we will certainly find out tomorrow, because this podcast will be in the can by that time. So without further ado, let's head on over into the roundup! Apple quietly announced two new iPads yesterday, updates to the iPad Air and the iPad Mini. Both of the new models come with a Lightning connector and a headphone jack, which seems weird, but both are also compatible with the Apple Pencil, but only the first generation Pencil, so yes, it does get weirder. The Verge sums this all up nicely by pointing out that buying an iPad is no longer simple. It used to be black or white and how much storage, but now there are multiple screen sizes, multiple connectors, multiple pencils, headphone jack or not. It just seems like Steve Jobs must be rolling in his grave right now as Apple tries to make everyone happy instead of just offering everyone a thing and saying, here, you want this. Call of Duty Fortnite Edition is due to hit your mobile phone sometime soon. It's actually just called Call of Duty Mobile, but you know, snark. And actually, I'm not even a gamer, so it's possible that Call of Duty was out first and Fortnite is just copying it. But whatever the case, if you like Call of Duty and you like Fortnite, you can get the combo experience coming soon. MySpace was one of the pioneers of the social networking space, which means it got on the ground floor and had millions of users to its name by the time sites like Facebook got going. But a server migration mishap, yeah, we'll call it a mishap, seems to have erased over 50 million songs uploaded to the site between 2003 and 2015. Oh, by the way, photos and video too. Yikes town! Just how that colossal a screw-up can happen, we have no idea. MySpace isn't exactly the easiest organization to get a hold of, but let's just say, if I were a MySpace user, well, I wouldn't be anymore. So here's an unpopular opinion that I hold. Police officers in Oregon used facial recognition to catch a $130 shoplifter and a $12 tank of gas theft. People are freaking out. Why are you using such advanced tech for stupid little crimes? Which is a good question, but consider this. Would the police have the ability to solve the cases without facial ID? Sure. At the cost of dozens of man-hours, or, the case just goes unsolved. With this tech, these criminals were caught, and let's be clear here, they are criminals with minimal use of manpower. Are we a step closer to 1984? Sure. Is that terrible? Probably. Is that the worst thing we have to deal with right now? Not even close. The United States will have its first exascale supercomputer by the end of 2021. It will be built at Argonne National Laboratory, which is basically my neighbor. Well, not my next door neighbor, but we both shop at the same Fry's Electronics. Anyway, the exascale supercomputer is capable of at least 1 exaflops or a quintillion calculations per second. The new supercomputer will largely be used for facial recognition at Walmarts across the country. I'm kidding. Or am I? If you're old as hell like me, you'll remember the game Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? It was a clue-based riddle game where you interviewed people and they gave you clues about where the jewel thief went. Like, I saw her drive off in a car with a white flag and a red dot in the middle. Or, she asked me where she could change her money to yen. So Google Earth has adapted the game to be played inside Google Earth, which is neat because in addition to playing the game, Google Earth flies you around the world and to various landmarks in major cities while you solve the clues. Go check it out if you have a spare 10 minutes and see if you can catch the thief like I did. And finally, if you haven't cemented your summer road trip plans, maybe point your odometers at Bend, Oregon and take a swing by the last Blockbuster on the planet. As of April 1st, and I'm not making this up, it's actually April 1st, the Blockbuster video store in Perth, Australia will have closed its doors for goods, leaving the Bend, Oregon as the last Blockbuster standing. USA! USA! I'm just kidding, nobody really cares. I'll quote the AP article here that says, quote, "The computer system must be rebooted using floppy disks that only the general manager, a solid member of Gen X," that only the manager knows how to use. The dot matrix printer broke, so employees write out membership cards by hand, and the store's business transactions are backed up on a reel-to-reel tape that can't be replaced because Radio Shack went out of business. Ah, nostalgia. Gotta love it. Me? I love Netflix. So that's going to do it for today's Digit Daily. And if you'd like to learn more about any of these stories, check out the links in the show notes and subscribe to our daily newsletter on digit.com. And if you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. Once again, I'm Adam Dowd, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again tomorrow.